Hey guys, so if you happen to be very serious about spirituality and enlightenment, but you haven't had a proper breakthrough or a proper whoa moment before, I want you to be open to how the breakthrough that you're looking for is something called a mystical experience. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because if I was trying to awaken spiritually, I would really appreciate someone telling me this, right? I would love to know that having a mystical experience is one of the most important things that you can have that will take spiritual work from, kind of cool ideas and concepts to something extremely real and profound. And to be honest with you guys, for a long time, I kind of thought these experiences were, a little bit out of reach because most people, they don't really know about them. Most people don't really talk about them. They seem kind of aloof, kind of far out, almost like unattainable. But where things change dramatically, guys, is when you actually have one of these experiences yourself. So, for example, the first time I had one of these experiences, I was so blown away and so astonished that right then and there, it just landed, guys. It was just permanently etched into my mind and consciousness that having a mystical experience, man, it is just one of the most powerful and direct ways of awakening yourself and making serious spiritual advancement. Right, and I never forgot this, guys. Even just having a few of these, the entire trajectory of my life changed, and I began to live more spiritually. I stopped drinking, I got off social media, I practiced celibacy. Not only this, but I became more mindful of my words, my actions, my desires. I basically started to live a lot more like my higher self would, and to be honest with you guys, I just didn't really look back. Now, I can share more about myself and my own path in other videos, but for today, guys, I just want to focus on the question, what actually is a mystical experience? What do we really mean by this term? Well, I would personally define it as a metaphysical or spiritual experience of reality, where you see into the truth of yourself whilst in an altered state of consciousness. So understand, guys, it's literally seeing divinity within your own direct visual field. And it's very radical. It's not like anything else you've ever seen, felt, or experienced. It's quite literally magic happening right before you. And unless you experience it yourself, it's just never going to make sense to you. Because if you try and rationalize it or understand it with the logical mind, it just remains conceptual. The only way to understand it truly is, of course, through first-person direct experience. In the same way that if you'd never tried a pizza before, you would be sure to, go out and actually try a pizza yourself by taking a big juicy bite out of it, before you think you know what a pizza actually is. Now, here's a really good question. Are mystical experiences for everyone? And the answer is no, absolutely not. In my experience, the only people that these are suited for are people who are very serious about spiritual work and who can handle their own stuff, right? So people who are very psychologically stable and psychologically healthy. So if you're a grounded person, that's perfect because you'll be headstrong and you'll be solid enough in your own self to let go of yourself safely. Whereas where this wouldn't be too appropriate is if you had mental instability or faint-heartedness. Honestly, guys, these things, they just don't mix with awakening and enlightenment work. Instead, you have to have developed yourself and grounded yourself well and firmly before you can look to have an experience like this. So get your inner work down, build that ego up nice and strong, and then consider moving on to the more spiritual work. But what if you're already a serious and stable person, and maybe already a practitioner of deep spiritual work? What's the deal then? Well, if that's the case, you may be a little bit like myself, and you basically cannot go on living without knowing the truth and awakening yourself to higher levels of consciousness. So if you are like this, and you're intrigued by this idea of a mystical experience, like I was, hopefully this video will be perfect for you, and will inspire you to, at some point in your life, have one of these experiences and taste the truth for yourself. Now, honestly, guys, because a mystical experience is such a profound thing to have, I don't actually recommend that you go out and have one right away. Instead, what I recommend is that you sit with this message and you contemplate it until a deep part of you hears this, because really, I'm not speaking to your logical mind. I'm always speaking to your higher self, so the part of you that gets this stuff intuitively, right? So just be sure to sit with it and to really think about things before you decide to do anything. Now, here are a couple of things that you can ask yourself that will help you to determine whether or not you're going to be ready to have your first mystical experience. So firstly, have you been on the spiritual path for a while? And are you kind of bored with the progress that you're making? Are you finding spirituality shallow, repetitive, overly intellectual? And now have you found yourself becoming kind of hungry, eager, maybe even desperate for an experience that is completely transcendent of what you normally experience in your life? Also, are you mature? Are you personally ready for, such an experience? Is it the right time for you? Or is it too early? Do you need to live more life? Do you need to earn more money? Do you need to build up a stronger ego? Right, you've got to ask yourself all of these questions, guys, because more often than not, we do have a lot more work to do on ourselves before we can get, really excited about having mystical experiences. A really wise thing to understand, which admittedly took me ages to accept, is that there's no rush on the spiritual path, guys. You have so much time. It's unbelievable. And the best thing to do is to learn to love your life, working your way up to having these higher experiences and savoring each moment along the way. Because what I've learned is that if you really want to, you can make enormous progress in short periods of time. That is if you have the right consciousness raising tools at your disposal. But regardless, to rush this journey is basically a fool's move, guys, right? We are mature enough to take this slow, and that's what I recommend doing in order to get the best results. Now, what about the things that will keep you from having a mystical experience? Well, the truth is, guys, it's pretty much everything that most people normally do. So watching TV, eating crappy food, socializing a bunch, drinking alcohol, wasting sexual energy, and so on. If you do these things, reality is not going to be mystical whatsoever. It's going to be material as hell. And significantly, you're not going to be attracting the right kind of things and the right kind of opportunities that will lead you to having mystical experiences in the first place. In fact, one of the reasons I love brahmacharya and retention so much is because for me personally, it makes reality feel a lot more naturally mystical, just on its own, right? Life and reality, they feel so much more spiritual. And if you're looking to attract something, like a shaman or some kind of retreat into your life that may, help facilitate your first mystical experience, that's going to be attracted into your life much easier if you're living in a more of a spiritual way. But what else? What other things out there are going to keep you from having a mystical experience? Well, one thing is if you just believe in what everyone else believes and you just accept everything that you're told. That's a surefire way to stay nice and asleep and not conscious of higher spiritual truths. Because to make reality more mystical, you've just got to empty your mind, guys. All of it's crap. And that definitely includes all of the social conditioning that you have and all of your subtle beliefs that reality is, material and somehow non-mystical. If you empty this stuff out through, years of spiritual purification, you will make yourself so much more ready for a mystical experience. And then when you do have one, it's not going to be shallow and it's not going to be corrupted by your mind. It's going to be pure. And that's exactly how we want it to be. Now, as much as you guys may want me to talk about how you would have an experience like this, I'm not actually going to be sharing that in this video. For me, it's a lot more important that I communicate just the idea and just the concept to begin with, and then maybe in the future I'll go into more detail about how to actually have one. For now, guys, just really understand that having a mystical experience is a very real thing that you can have, and that if you do have one, man, you will remember it as the thing that really opened everything up. The thing that shattered your ideas of spirituality and really just showed you the truth. So again, if you're serious, if you're committed to awakening and enlightenment work, remember this and it will take you very far. Otherwise, guys, a final reminder, I do offer coaching, and so if you need any help with integrating mystical experiences or even with integrating non-spiritual stuff too, you can check out the link in the description. Otherwise, if you've enjoyed this one and you'd like more, then my friend, please do subscribe.